Everybody, and welcome to Basic Land Walk. This is a deck tech for dummies for the pre-modern format. So I recently posted a short posting a little bit of a story about finding a random Vampire Hounds in some of my bulk. Vampire Hounds is kind of a nostalgic card for me. I remember opening this exact card when I was a kid. It was one of the first packs that I was able to get with my own money, and it was a very cool, powerful card in the eyes of a child. And it got put in a box. It got played in many decks along the way, but it ended up being in a box and living under the table in my house for a long time. And I found it, and I could not put it down. I've been playing Premodern since June of 2021, and I have a really bad habit of finding terrible interactions and just wanting to see what they look like on paper, and then subjecting other people to playing against them because it's what you do when you have a problem with building funny decks. So this is Vampire Hounds, and if you squint really, really hard at Vampire Hounds, you get a zombie infestation with haste, and that's the copium that I'm huffing, and that's how we're going to be addressing this today. So those of you that don't know, Vampire Hounds is a black and 2 or a 2/2 creature. It's choose and discard a creature card. Vampire Hounds gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So we get 2 power and 2 toughness for discarding a single creature card. Zombie Infestation gives us, we discard 2 cards to put a 2/2 zombie into play. So one of the effects is a single card for 2 power, 2 toughness. One of the effects is 2 cards for 2 power, 2 toughness. Yeah, there's a little bit of a weird typing. This card has to be a creature card when you discard it. This is just any 2 that we have in the deck, but we've built a deck that allows us to abuse this in one way or another, or at least synergize off of it a little bit. So that's what I'm talking about. When we squint really hard and we look at it kind of sideways, Vampire Hounds is a zombie infestation with haste. We'll not be taking any questions on that because that's the copium that I'm huffing, and you can know that before we get into the actual deck tech. This is what we're building around. I'm treating Vampire Hounds as a 5th copy of Zombie Infestation, and the rest of it is mono black cards that I think are cool. So we'll go through them one by one and see what we end up with. Vampire Hounds, the namesake card of the deck. I only have a single copy because I only own a single copy, and that's what we ended up building. We have Ghastly Demise because we hate Goblin Lackeys. We can't kill Goblin Lackey on turn 1 with Ghastly Demise, but we're going to be able to kill most creatures in the format shortly into the mid to late game. And we do have our 4 Innocent Bloods in the main. There, my deck tech is going all over the place. I'm so sorry, everybody. Ghastly Demise is a single black for an instant. Destroy target non-black creature if its toughness is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. So it's semi-conditional removal that will kill most things in the format given enough time and enough cards in our graveyard, which we are fueling with our build-around cards. We have 4 copies of Innocent Blood, which is 1 black sorcery. Each player sacrifices a creature. Now, it might look like we're doing a lot of discarding and getting rid of our own cards. We're sacrificing our own creatures. That's fine. We don't give a shit because our creatures all come back. Most of them come back. We have 4 copies of Duress because we don't like counterspells. We don't like Tormod's Crypts. We don't like things that can interrupt our enchantments. We have Cabal Therapy as a 3 of. In the main, we have another copy over here in the sideboard. We'll go over that in a minute. Duress. If you haven't played with these cards before, I'm sorry, I'm kind of moving through them as if you have some experience with Premodern. I'm assuming if you click on this video, you know something about the Premodern format, but just in case you don't, Duress is a single black. Target opponent reveals his or her hand. Choose a non-creature, non-land card from it. That player discards that card. This lets us look at our opponent's hand for potential removal or potential counter spells that stop us from playing cards that we want to play. Doesn't hit creatures, but we don't really care about that because we're trying to play a go wide or aggressive strategy that just overwhelms opposing creatures. Cabal Therapy is similar effect. Single black, we name a non-land card. Target player reveals the hand, and then they discard all cards with the chosen name, and we can flash this back. So flashback lets us cast it out of our graveyard for sacrificing a creature. So we can see their hand with Duress. We don't have to name a card, but we get to see what's in it. And then if we have a Cabal Therapy, we can follow up and name a card that we know is in the hand, make sure we get it, and then later in the game, we can sacrifice a creature to cast this out of our graveyard for free. Well, the cost of the creature, but a lot of our creatures come back and we have recursive threats. That's where we're getting to with building with. We sacrifice our own creatures, we throw our cards away because we don't care. We're using the graveyard as a resource. We have Dark Ritual to give our deck a little bit of explosiveness in the main, just as a 2-of, and then we have 2 more copies in the sideboard just in case we need to go a little faster. It also helps us power out some of our sideboard cards that are really necessary for certain matchups. This is Nether Shadow. Nether Shadow is a 2-mana 1/1 with haste. If Shadow is in the graveyard with any combination of cards above it that includes at least 3 creatures, it can be returned to play during your upkeep. So if this is in our graveyard and we have any creature cards above it, the one on the bottom of the stack will come back. So say this was our graveyard. At the beginning of our turn, because this Nether Shadow has 3 creature cards above it, this one would come back to play. So we can sacrifice this one to our Cabal Therapy after we attack with it. It will go back to the graveyard, and then on our next turn, this Nether Shadow now has 3 creature cards above it, so this one would come back. And that's kind of the energy or synergy that we're building our deck around. Similar effects. Nether Shadow is kind of the most generic, but also one of the most iconic. I think this card's very cool, and that's why I'm choosing to play it. Synergizes well, and it does the thing that I want the deck to do. We have Ashen Ghoul, which is a similar effect. It is a 3/1 with haste, 4 mana on the hard cast if we do ever make it that far into the game. For a single black, we can return Ashen Ghoul to play under our control. We can only activate the ability in our upkeep, and if Ashen Ghoul is in the graveyard with at least 3 creature cards above it. So it's just like Nether Shadow, it needs 3 creature cards on top of it, so it would need a similar stack to this. Then on our upkeep, we could pay a black and return Ashen Ghoul to play. And you can get creative if you have multiple creatures with this effect that will be triggered. You can stack the triggers where to satisfy multiple creatures. Say we have a stack of creatures such as 5. We would be able to stack our triggers where we're paying, returning Ashen Ghoul, we get Nether Shadow back because we've satisfied both of these. This is one of the decks that does care about the order of its graveyard. So we have to be careful when we're discarding things, what order we actually put the cards in our graveyard. One of the rules of Magic is you're not allowed to reorder cards in your graveyard once they're there. And a lot of decks in modern day Magic don't care, but some of the older cards that do care, we have to be careful of and conscientious of. Nether Shadow and Ashen Ghoul are some of those cards. So we do have to be aware of that and keep that in mind as we're playing. Playing a full playset of Zombie Infestation, we want to be able to discard cards to make 2/2 zombies. We're playing a Null Rod because fuck Tormod scripts. We don't want to see Tormod script. We don't want to see them get activated. That's just something we don't want to deal with. I don't want to see Phyrexian Furnace. I would like it to just stop existing, stop bothering me. Icarid is another graveyard creature. It's a 3/1 with haste. At the end of our turn, we have to sacrifice Icarid. But at the beginning of our upkeep, we can eat another black creature out of our graveyard to return Icarid from the graveyard to the battlefield. So we get a lot of repeat 3/1s that come out of the yard. We do have to eat some of our own material to bring back Icarid, but usually a couple of smacks from Icarid is enough of a life point swing where you're willing to make that trade-off. We're going to be doing a lot of that evaluating throughout the game, and we need to decide if a 3/1 for a couple of turns is better than a 1/1 over and over again, but that'll vary from game to game. We have Kraviken Horror is another 4 mana 2/2. At the end of any turn, if Kraviken Horror is in our graveyard with a summon card, our creature card, directly above it, we may put Kraviken Horror into our hand. So we can discard this at the end of our opponent's turn. We don't want to do it in the end step. We want to do it in their main phase. Then we can pick up any Kraviken Horror with a creature on top of it. So this would be a scenario where if these 2 creatures are on top of one another, we would only get this one because there's not a creature on top of this one. And then we have Squee Goblin Nabob as a full playset. This is the other synergy card with Zombie Infestation and Vampire Hounds. I apologize for the babyface Squee art. It's the only ones I own, so you can take it out on me in the comments if you really feel strongly about it. At the beginning of our upkeep, we get to pick Squee up from our graveyard and put it back in our hand. So this is just repeatable discard effects. We can keep pumping out zombies. We can keep making our hound big and keep setting up our ghouls because we can stack the triggers where we'll have Squeeze on top of Ghoul. We can activate Ghoul to bring it back to play and then pick our Squeeze up and put them back in our hand to re-discard to Zombie Infestation. We have a bunch of basics. Basic Landwalk, the channel. We play a bunch of basics here. Play more lands than me. I'm playing 19 lands in this build. It's not enough, and you should probably tune to your own tastes. I choose to play a criminally low land count because I like the deck to do the cool thing, and sometimes Magic just doesn't get played. This deck doesn't need very much mana to operate as long as you can get a Zombie Infestation down or a or ritual hand, we're usually playing the game, but we really want Infestation or Vampire Hounds. We're going to be mulliganing aggressively to them in the blind, and then after sideboard games, we have access to some other stuff, the way that I have the deck built. So play more lands than me, play cooler lands than me, don't play just all basics, we'll figure it out. The deck's really fun. The sideboard that I currently have constructed is very grindy. We're actually looking to slow down or speed up, depending on the matchup. We have copies of Withered Wretch to fight opponents' graveyards. We have 4 copies of Braids if we want to make our opponents start sacrificing permanents. If they're going to give us time and they want to play to the board, we have Braids and we have an Avatar of Woe. If we don't think they're going to threaten our graveyard, more Ghastly Demises for, I don't actually know. I probably am missing a card here. I think that might be my 4th copy of Engineered Plague. So I would play 4 Plagues. The other Cabal Therapy for combo matchups, and Dark Ritual if we need to go faster, or bring in Engineered Plague. Engineered Plague is a 3-mana enchantment. When it comes in, we choose a creature type, and the creatures of that type get -1/-1. So this is our answer to goblins, to elves, things that are faster than us and get underneath of us. And that's the sideboard that I have constructed right now. If you want to do a really simple and easy upgrade to this deck, and there is a deck in the format already that's a lot of time has been put into, that's black-red, and it plays Contamination. I have 2 copies of Contamination that I've picked up. This is a hard lock card with Zombie Infestation and Sweep going. Contamination is a 3-mana enchantment. It says during your upkeep, sacrifice a creature or sacrifice Contamination. Whenever a land is tapped for mana, it produces black instead of its normal type. So if you have an opponent that doesn't have black spells and they can't cast any of their spells because all of their mana makes black, all of their lands make black. If they have mana rocks, they can get around it. We're not going to play to that world, but whatever. If you have mana rocks or mox diamonds, like win. Or at least you can make mana. You might not win. This just beats some decks on its own. If you lock out their disenchant colors and you can keep making a 2/2 every turn with Infestation to feed to Contamination, it doesn't matter how long it takes you to find the next thing because you will, and your opponent has no way out of it. This should probably be in the main deck, and I would probably make room for it in the sideboard by trimming Braids from what I have right now. But it's not in my current list because I don't know. I'm playing a bad deck on purpose because this is a deck tech for dummies. If you like this deck tech, if you have any feedback, if you have any constructive feedback or even critiques, feel free to share them. This is one of my first paper deck techs without using a Moxfield list. So I'm sorry that it's kind of clunky and scattered, but hopefully they will get better as the channel goes on. Thank you for being here, and I look forward to seeing you in the next short and maybe in next deck tech. Bye.